Okay, gang, we're back. We're going to do a couple more of these neurodegenerative diseases, very high yield. Now, this one is very important. I never want you to miss this one. This is Lou Gehrig's disease. This is the one that they were doing the ice bucket challenges. So, everybody throwing ice on themselves. Yeah, to try to raise awareness. It's kind of a rare disease, but it's devastating. Now, look at the name amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. A means without muscle growth. In fact, it does the opposite. It doesn't grow, it atrophies. So you see extensive muscular atrophy, and that's the key. No sensory, only motor. This is a pure motor problem. And it's not the muscle, it's the nerve. So this is the most common adult primary motor neuron disorder. So it's not the muscle. The muscle is atrophying, it's not growing because of the motor neuron dying. Yeah, without stimulation, the muscle's a slave to the nerve. If there's no nerve, the muscle's like, innervate me, innervate me, innervate me. So the muscles are going to have denervation atrophy. That's what you're going to see, denervation. In fact, they often twitch. They get what's called fasciculations because they're not being innervated. They're like, innervate me, please. So they start twitching and then they atrophy. So that's the problem here. Amyotrophic, the muscles are weak and they're atrophying because the motor neurons died. And remember, the upper motor neurons are the cortical spinal tracts, which are located laterally in the spinal cord. So those lateral cortical spinal tracts are going to die, and then they'll get fibrotic. So that's what got his name, lateral sclerosis, because it's the lateral portion where the cortical spinal tracts are, and also the lower motor neurons too will get all sclerotic and gliosis. All right, now in addition to Lou Gehrig, by the way, he was dropping his bat. He was still trying to score, but he started getting all this weakness, and then he had to retire because he couldn't play anymore. Another one is the physicist in England, the one with the theories on black holes, right? Stephen Hawking. Yeah, he's had it for like 15 years. And did you see the ice bucket challenge? He's like, I can't do it because I'll get pneumonia and I'll die because that's the most common cause of death. So I'll have my children do it for me. And his kids did it, and they poured on. It was crazy. So the ice bucket challenge, trying to raise awareness. Now, I don't think that he really has Lou Gehrig's. I think he has something that's very similar. But Lou Gehrig's disease, patients usually live between 1 and 5 years. After 5 years, almost everyone's dead. He's had it for almost 15 years now. So I think he's got something similar. His motor neurons are clearly dying, but I think it's something similar, or maybe it's just a milder variant or something, because most people with this disease are dead relatively quickly. 5 years is usually the longest you see here. Now, another one, and hopefully you've read this book. It's called Tuesdays with Morrie. Not Weekends at Bernie. No, that was different. Tuesdays with Morrie, a really good book. It's a short book. If you haven't read it yet, when you have some time after the USMLE, you might want to go get it and read it. It's in every library. You can just borrow it. It's in every bookstore. It's a really good book. Now, obviously, no happy endings here. You're going to die of this disease. No happy endings. But it was a very interesting story about a teacher named Morrie who got this disease. And his student said, oh my gosh, you're dying? I'm going to visit you every Tuesday and we can talk. And they talked about what's important in life. So as an American, we tend to get caught on the treadmill. Work, study, work. Oh, the game's on? Oh, tell me who wins. Work. Oh, you're getting married? Oh, congratulations. Work. We tend to miss out on life. So it's very important to try to create a balance. I know as doctors, we're way out of balance, but you got to try to make at least some balance here because you don't want to miss out on the important things in life. Family, friends, experiences. We want to do both. We want to be a great doctor. We want to study hard, but we also want to play hard too. Make sense? We need to create that balance because trust me, you're out of balance. So I read this book. I was out of balance. I was working my butt off. I was doing 16 jobs at the same time. And then I realized, you know what? I got to enjoy myself. I got to go teach. I love teaching. It doesn't pay well, but I love teaching, right? Teaching never gets paid well. But I really enjoy teaching. So I said, I'm gonna say, forget it. I'll get less money, but I'm going to go teach. Because how many Corvettes can you have, right? How many Corvettes can you have? After a while, it's all excess. So get your house, get your Corvette, and then you want to give back. You want to give back. And so that's what we want to do. So read the book. It's a really good book. You'll learn about life because we forget sometimes. It definitely changed my life. After I saw this, I said, I'm going to enjoy my time with my family. It's very important. Now, the most important person to ever get this disease, in my opinion, was my mom. My mom got this. She was in the Caribbean on a cruise. She came home and said, John, I was tripping. I was like, was it very rough? Was the boat moving? He's like, no, it was very calm, but I was tripping. I was like, Mom, walk for me. Walk for me. She's walking and her foot's dragging. I'm like, do you have B12 deficiency? You got a foot drop. What's going on? She goes, no, I'm just really twitchy. I was like, what do you mean twitchy? She goes, feel. I'm like, oh my God, fasciculations. Do you know when your eye is tired and it twitches? It's so annoying, right? It's so annoying. It doesn't hurt. It's just very annoying. Imagine your whole body doing it, your whole arm, your whole leg, because these are denervated. They're literally twitching because they've lost their innervation. They're atrophying. They're twitching. Now, you get twitching of your eye because you're stressed, because you're dehydrated, because your electrolyte balance, because you didn't sleep at night. And that's why you get. So don't worry. Everybody gets eye twitching from time to time because of stress and dehydration, lack of sleep. They're getting it throughout their body because they've lost the motor neurons. And again, there was no sensory problems. It's only motor. And I don't wish this disease on my worst enemy. I don't wish it was, because it's a terrible disease. Your thinking is perfect. No problem. You can't move. You're literally trapped in your body. You're trapped. And for my mom, it was so sad. She loved to go out and do stuff. She couldn't. She started getting, weak. We had to put, the steps are too tall. So we put a brick to make like a smaller step. So she'd step on the brick and then she'd step up the step because she gets so weak, you can't lift your legs. So eventually we had to put like a little elevator to bring her up the stairs because she couldn't walk up the stairs anymore. And then you fall on the ground, you can't get up. Like the doorbell rings, she goes up to get it, she falls down, she can't get up. She's trapped. We got her a call device so she can call us when she falls, so she can call us and tell us that she needs our help. It's so sad. And then finally you get trapped. And some people have to brush your hair, they've got to wipe your butt. I mean, can you imagine somebody else wiping your butt? I mean, that's pretty embarrassing, right? I mean, you can't move. It's terrible. And then eventually you're going to aspirate and die of pneumonia. It's a terrible, terrible disease. And the worst for her is she loved her garden. In the summer, she would never go on vacation because she didn't want to miss her garden blooming. Well, at the end, she couldn't go out to see her garden. She couldn't even make it to the window. We had to carry her out. It was terrible. Her garden would bloom and she would be trapped in her room. Terrible disease. So don't miss this one. I will spank you if you miss it. Now, here's what you need to know. And this is another disease that's kind of rare, but man, they love it. They love it. So this is the most common primary motor neuron disorder. It's about 5,000 cases a year. That's it. 5,000 cases the entire year. But it's important. It's important. It's degeneration of both the upper and lower motor neurons with no sensory problems whatsoever. It's only motor. So upper and lower motor neurons degenerate and no underlying cause that we can find. Now, somebody thinks that the reason the neurons are dying are free radicals. And they're probably right. It's probably a free radical-induced disease. Some people were blaming glutamate. Do you remember MSG? MSG, like the Chinese food had MSG. No MSG, no MSG. MSG, well, this monosodium glutamate. Glutamate. So some people think that the glutamate is causing free radicals to occur in the brain. So again, it's probably more than just this, but certainly MSG may have been playing a role in this. So MSG, monosodium glutamate, high levels of glutamate can damage neurons. Now, clinical course. This is a progressive degenerative disease, usually over 1 to 2 years. Again, most people are dead by 5. You get asymmetrical weakness, usually of the hands first. So hands, feet, you have trouble with fine motor tasks, trouble moving and doing stuff. They get diminished muscle strength. Yeah, so Lou Gehrig was dropping his bat. He was taking a swing and it would go flying because the muscles are basically atrophied. That's why they call it amyotrophic. Without muscle growth, the muscle atrophies instead. You start getting these involuntary contractions. This is called fasciculation. This is what denervated muscle does. It twitches and it atrophies. So involuntary contraction of motor units. And they tend to get spasticity when the upper motor neurons are involved. Remember, upper for spasticity, hyperreflexia, and don't forget your Babinskis. Babinski sign. So this is the upper motor neuron. These three are the lower motor neuron. And then eventually it's going to weaken the respiratory muscle. So she tries to cough, you can't really cough well, and you keep getting pneumonia until it takes you. That's the old man's friend. Okay. Now, treatment. There's one drug and it stinks, but it's asked on the exam. So much over Riluzole. Riluzole. If you're a Yankee fan, you remember back in the old days, you had Phil Rizzuto. Riluzole sounds like Phil Rizzuto. Riluzole. Phil Rizzuto? No. All right. You're probably too young to know the Yankees anyway. But Lou Gehrig was a famous player, so was Phil Rizzuto. But Riluzole. Now, what this is supposed to do, it's supposed to lower the glutamate. That's what it's supposed to do, but it really doesn't work well. The studies say it gives you maybe 1 or 2 more months, but the problem is it gives you side effects. So I put my mom on it, and she got so sick. She's like, you know what? If this is going to give me 1 more month of being sick, it's not worth it. I'd rather live 1 less month, but not have all these side effects. So we stopped it because it was just too toxic. So that's the problem. But for USMLE purposes, remember Riluzole. It just doesn't work really good. It kind of stinks. But Riluzole is supposed to decrease glutamate. All right, now here's what they expect you to know. Anatomy. So amyotrophic lateral sclerosis is going to affect the lateral part of the spinal cord. So the cortical spinal tracts, this is the upper motor neurons, they're located here. So this is why they call it lateral sclerosis, because these lateral parts neurons are going to die, and you're going to get sclerosis. Okay, so that's classic. That's the spasticity, the hyperreflexia, the Babinskis. Now, when the lower motor neurons die, those are the anterior or ventral horn areas. That's where you'll see the cell death. And again, that's for the lower motor neurons, so ventral horn. Now, do you remember there were spinal roots coming out here? We had a dorsal root and we had a ventral root coming out of your spinal cord. Do you remember that? Remember there were 2 roots? All right, now they're going to ask you which root is going to atrophy. Well, let's see. Do you remember the motor neurons are here? Where are their axons? Well, it goes out the anterior, right? So there's the cell body, and then the axon goes out this way, right? That's the way the axon goes. Well, if the neuron dies, so does its axon. So you're going to see atrophy of the anterior or ventral spinal cord roots, in addition to the anterior horn. So I think that's important because I think students are going to memorize Lou Gehrig's anterior horn, ventral horn. Then when they ask, which root? Students are like, I don't know. Come on, dorsal is sensory, ventral is your motor. That's where the motor neuron axons are. So that's what's going to atrophy. It's going to be the ventral horn and the ventral root. And you can actually see it. So I'll show you this picture. Take a look at this. Okay, normal. These posterior roots should be nice and thick, right? These roots coming out should be nice and thick coming out. Look at them here. They're really like small. There's not much of them. Look at this one here. Really small. There's not much here. So you get these thinning of the anterior roots compared to what they should be. Look at them here. They're really atrophied. Do you see them? This compared to this? I think that's a pretty good example. Okay, so they like to ask it. Now, here's what the spinal cord looks like. We call it lateral sclerosis because the cortical spinal tracts. Do you see the way they're being lost? And then you'll get gliosis here. So they call it lateral sclerosis. And of course, the anterior ventral horn is involved. And then look at these roots. Do you see this root here compared to the root back here? See the dorsal root back here? It's discontinuous just because of the planus section, but it should look like that. And this one is like tiny. It's like teeny weeny. Look at this one. It's like barely there. This one's barely there. So again, the anterior roots. Now, I got to take it to gunner level. Most cases are sporadic. We don't know why. But about 5 to 10% of Lou Gehrig's disease is genetic. 5 to 10% is run in families. And it's autosomal dominant. So you're going to give it to half your kids. So that's important. Now, for these genetic cases, there are several genes, but the one I've heard them ask on the exam is superoxide dismutase 1 gene mutations. So again, there are other genes too, but this is the one they seem to ask. So 5 to 10% of ALS is genetic. It's usually dominant, and it usually on the exam